This week at the movies, from the man who brought us Titanic and the Terminator, it's Avatar.
Is Oscar-winning director James Cameron still the king of the world? Also coming up this week,
Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin are getting set to co-host the Oscars. Meanwhile, they're rivals for the affection of multiple Oscar winner Meryl Streep in It's Complicated. We've got the early review.
OMG, I thought he'd never leave.
And Sarah Jessica Parker and Hugh Grant leave New York for the great outdoors, and comedy supposedly ensues in Did You Hear About the Morgans?
Home sweet home.
I love what you've done with the heads.
Plus, Jeff Bridges has already won awards for his portrayal of a country singer in Crazy Heart. Can he serenade Oscar voters as well?
Plus, a robot and a French chef rank at number 2 on our lists of the top 10 movies of the decade.
Looks like you. This is your avatar.
Just relax and let your mind go blank. It shouldn't be hard for you.
Okay, it's the biggest, bluest, 3D-est spectacular of the new century, James Cameron's Avatar. I'm Michael Phillips with the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times. So, Michael, what does $300 million of production budget buy you these days?
Let's find out, man. Let's find out. Writer-director James Cameron's first narrative feature since Titanic 12 years ago began from a simple plan to create an exotic new world and throw us headlong into its visual wonders.
Oh my God.
See your faces.
Avatar takes place 145 years from now on a distant moon called Pandora. A precious mineral lies beneath sacred ground inhabited by the forest-dwelling 12-foot-tall natives called the Na'vi. Now, to extract the mineral, the mining company's security chief, played by Stephen Lang, is not above shock and awe.
If there is a hell, you might want to go there for some R&R after a tour on Pandora. Out there beyond that fence, every living thing that crawls, flies, or squats in the mud wants to kill you and eat your eyes for jujubes.
Our hero is Jake Sully, a paraplegic ex-Marine played by Sam Worthington in a very effective performance. Under the supervision of a tough yet compassionate Sigourney Weaver, Jake joins the Avatar program. Now that means he's locked in a pod, hooked up psychically to his surrogate alien avatar, and allowed to live through him. This virtual reality experiment lets Jake experience all sorts of amazements denied him in his other human life. Here, Jake is schooled by a Na'vi tribeswoman, played in a motion-captured performance by Zoe Saldana.
Naughty.
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 Doing it all stronger.
Latiri calls me scown. It means moron.
The movie is over 2.5 hours long. I loved the first 90 minutes of it. I wish the other half had the wonder and spirit of the first. But in the second half, you essentially wait around for the bulldozers and the genocidal anguish to begin. Two things cannot be denied, though. Cameron can really build an action sequence as well as anyone. And more than the 3D effects, I think, it's the motion capture technology in Avatar that makes a quantum leap. Even when Cameron, the writer, is undermining Cameron, the director, whatever's happening on screen, you believe it, and especially for the first half of this film, I say see it. That's what I say.
I absolutely say see it. I can't wait to see it more. I had the feeling coming out of this movie that I haven't felt maybe since, you know, I was 11 years old in 1977 and I saw Star Wars for the first time.
Wow,
and
you had that strong a reaction.
I don't think it's that epical a movie, but I just was totally satisfied by it in a way, by visually, but also by the story and the characters. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of special effects for its own sake.
Right.
And what I think is amazing about this movie is, first of all, it takes an original story. It's not an action blockbuster that's, you know, based on a comic book or another movie or any pre-existing material. And it creates this world where you're immersed in it visually, so you kind of forget that it's unreal, and you end up really caring about the characters and following the story. And I just
so you had no drop off at the midpoint, because that's where I felt, oh, I'm not, you know, I really thought that it got very ham-handed with the military versus the natives.
No, look, I mean, yes, the script is a little bit kind of, you know, obvious, but in a way that kind of earnest, corniness is part of what made it work. It's part of what made the story just be so absorbing.
Well, right, and I think its sincerity certainly gets you believing in it. I really felt like this is what this technology can do. It can bring you in, and it's not the kind of 3D that is throwing stuff at your head every 30 seconds. It's much more subtle, and it's the only really truly subtle thing about Avatar.
Right.
But I was the first 90 minutes is really magical.
And you're quite right about the motion capture. I mean, the idea that you could take these sort of 12-foot strange blue creatures with these glowing eyes and make you, care about them and make you sort of feel that they were absolutely as real as the people is
right.
an astonishing
Right, you don't believe, and actually even the video gaming segments where you have people, flying on these prehistoric, futuristic dinosaur birds, that's wonderful. Those scenes can go on a long time, and you really love it. So
yeah.
No, there's a lot of good stuff in
movie.
it. Go to our website and click on Web Exclusives, where we'll delve deeper into the world of Avatar with a spoiler-laden discussion.
You can watch us get our geek on. Okay, next movie. A comedy for grown-ups, about grown-ups. What is the world coming to? It's Complicated opens next week. This is an early review. At 60, Meryl Streep is on fire. Her touch has never been lighter, her comic timing never more assured. In writer-director Nancy Meyers' new movie, Streep plays Jane Adler, a Santa Barbara mother of 3 who finds herself, 10 years after her divorce, having a fling with her remarried ex-husband.
I think this is very French of us.
How is it French of us?
I have a young wife, but I am having sex with my old wife. My old, ex. I didn't mean old.
That's Alec Baldwin as Jake, the ex in question, as fine a blend of charm, pomposity, and middle-aged male cluelessness as you'll ever hope to find. But just as things are heating up between the former spouses, a shy architect named Adam, played by Steve Martin, takes an interest in Jane.
Hey, there's your ex-husband. Uh-oh, he's headed right toward us. Not a great time to be feeling groovy.
John Krasinski is the fiancé of Jane's oldest daughter, and he catches a glimpse of his future mother and father-in-law sneaking into a hotel for some illicit hanky-panky.
Harley!
I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to spit on you.
Who did you just see?
No one? That was weird. I thought it was your cousin from... Oh, my God.
Complicated indeed. This movie has some soft spots and slow patches, but Meyer manages the transitions from fizzy farce to more serious emotions gracefully. Some of the best comedies traffic in hurt feelings and make us laugh and cry a little bit at the same time. And It's Complicated, in its mellow, observant, generous way, hits some surprising notes of authentic feeling. Streep and Baldwin are terrific, and if you like your romance bittersweet, you won't want to miss this one. See it.
Yeah, it's very satisfying. I don't even think Myers is a particularly, stylish director in any way, and the technique is very kind of, sitcom-y. But these performers are just, as you say, it is mellow craftsmanship.
Yes.
They really know how to play it. And even when you get bits as predictable and familiar as, the 60-year-olds are getting high for the first time in 20-some years, right?
Right.
Just to see Steve Martin work how to do a nonverbal thing, like how to squint and not seem like you're chemically altered, and yet, very funny stuff.
Very
Small
funny,
things,
and they're not, they're not playing sort of caricatures. I mean, Alec Baldwin, yes, he's sort of a buffoon and a bloviator, as the New York Post likes to call him, but he's also, you can see his appeal and his charm and how he and the Meryl Streep character worked together for so long and still have some unfinished business.
Right.
And as sort of the retiring nerdy guy, Steve Martin turns out to be a little different from what you think.
What I like to,
and it doesn't, the younger wife is not sort of demonized into some kind of horrible, shrewish bimbo. Everyone gets treated, with some generosity.
I disagree with you on that, though. I think that's the one real note of kind of dismissive caricature, for my money. But what I like about the film, too, is that it doesn't put the female lead in any kind of passive role. She's really running her own show, and of course Streep, God knows, can run her own show anytime she wants. And if you liked Something's Gotta Give, which was Meyer's earlier film with Diane Keaton and Jack Nicholson, this is very much in that vein. For many of the same reasons, it's worth seeing.
Absolutely. Very, very satisfying movie.
Coming up next, one of our most underrated actors, Jeff Bridges, stars in a movie you don't want to miss. It's Crazy Heart.
And later, Sarah Jessica Parker and Hugh Grant adjust to the witness protection program in Did You Hear About the Morgans?
I'm 57 years old. I'm broke. Why don't you sit down and write some songs, huh? Keep talking.
I keep feeling obliged to apologize for being less than you probably imagine me to be.
For more than 30 years, Jeff Bridges has been one of the most reliable actors in American movies. He's at his very best in Crazy Heart, a modest little picture from first-time writer-director Scott Cooper. Bridges plays Bad Blake, an aging country singer whose career is not exactly thriving.
475.
Also on the tab.
No tab.
I'm Bad Blake, darling. I am the band.
Jimmy? Tab?
In spite of hard living and heavy drinking, Bad is still a professional and still able to thrill the few fans who turn up at his shows. Now, the secret of country music is that it always finds new variations on the same old themes. And the story in Crazy Heart is a pretty familiar one of second chances and near misses. Bad meets a music journalist played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, who, against her better judgment, falls in love with him.
Well, you're writing a song on my bed.
So?
So, every time I lie down and hear that beautiful song, and you're gonna be out there running around, not even remembering this day.
Gyllenhaal is very good in the role, but I just can't say enough about Bridges, who plays the songs written for this movie as if he'd been performing them his whole life. He shows us a man who's generous, vain, enormously talented, and seriously messed up, trying to get his life back together. I happen to love country songs about loneliness, whiskey, and love gone wrong, but even if you're not a fan of this music, you should see this movie.
And I'm so sick of you singing those songs in the dressing room. It's just
Well, you know, I've had a rough life, and I've lived it, man.
And you've sung it. I say see it too. This performance is as good as he's ever done. And Bridges has a quality that there's a reason he's been sort of underrated for quite a bit of his career. It's an invisible technique he brings. He never showboats, Jeff Bridges. You know, he never overplays a moment.
And it's such a complicated character, and he does it with such grace and simplicity. I mean, because this guy is sort of, you know, courtly and flirtatious with the Maggie Gyllenhaal character. He's also a complete wreck. You know, the first time he meets her, he comes to the door and his belt buckle's undone and he doesn't have a shirt on and he's, you know, drinking whiskey and chain smoking. But he doesn't overplay that. He doesn't overplay either the mess of this guy's life or the kind of the decency and talent underneath
I'd say the film is a little tidy, but the performance, you know, absolutely fleshes out, loosens up. It's wonderful. And obviously it puts you in mind, I think, of, you know, Tender Mercies, Robert Duvall, A Generation Ago.
And Robert Duvall shows up in this movie.
In this film. And I think also The Wrestler, too, with Mickey Rourke. This is another one about somebody living on the margins of show business, trying to redeem himself. Good film. Coming up next, we've reached the #2 spot on our lists of the top 10 movies of the decade.
And on next week's show, Robert Downey Jr., Jude Law, and Rachel McAdams star in Sherlock Holmes. Plus, Daniel Day-Lewis, Penelope Cruz, and Nicole Kidman in the musical 9.
A man trying to win back his wife.
Only 2 picks remain in our countdown of the top 10 movies of the decade. So far, my picks have been Minority Report, Gosford Park, Mulholland Drive, United 93, Zodiac, Y Tu Mama Tambien, Once, and the Turkish film Climates. My #2 pick, Ratatouille. It's my favorite comedy of the decade, and in many ways, it's the most unpredictable of the most recent Pixar gems. Here, Remy, the provincial country rat who dreams of becoming a chef, gets his first look at that magical universe known as Paris.
But why here? Why now?
Why not here? Why not now? What better place to dream than in Paris?
That music by the great Michael Giacchino is enough to make you fly to France immediately. Some people can't get past the whole rat in the kitchen idea with Ratatouille. For me, this is the mastery of Pixar. The director, Brad Bird, who also did The Incredibles, can make me believe in a fairy tale that follows its own seemingly improvised recipe for greatness, and I cannot wait to see this one again. I love it.
I love this movie, too, and it has one of my favorite characters in all of movies of the last decade, and the one that I identify with the most, who is, of course, the critic.
Yes, Anton Ego.
You provide the food, I'll provide the perspective, which would go nicely with a bottle of Cheval Blanc 1947.
For my money, it's the only Pixar film of the last few that actually gets better and better and better, and then just ends with this glorious.
It's just great. Yes, it's perfect. Good choice. So far, my picks for the top 10 movies of the decade are $1 Million Baby, 25th Hour, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days, The Best of Youth, Where the Wild Things Are, The Pianist, and Brokeback Mountain. My number 2 choice is Steven Spielberg's AI, a project he took over from Stanley Kubrick and perhaps the most misunderstood movie of the past 10 years. AI tells the story of David, played by Haley Joel Osment, a robot ordered up by a childless couple in an ecologically devastated future. David, inspired by the story of Pinocchio, wants to become human.
What were those words for, Mommy?
What did you call me?
Like Spielberg's Minority Report, and for that matter, like Avatar, this movie brilliantly fuses CGI and traditional methods to conjure an unsettling and weirdly familiar vision of the future. This movie is long, rich, and strange, and people who complain about a sentimental ending miss the point. This is by far the darkest, saddest movie Spielberg has ever directed. It's about the end of life as we know it, and it remains his unsung masterpiece.
I say it's...
Stop laughing.
No, someday I may change my mind on this film, but the more people try to convince me that ending isn't kind of like teetering into this sentimental, freakly... to me, these two...
It's human extinction.
No. These two sensibilities, Kubrick's and Spielberg's, did not, I don't think, ultimately make a satisfying mixture.
I think they work together perfectly. But we have the next 2,000 years to argue about.
All right. Both Ratatouille and AI are currently available on DVD.
Coming up next, are they fish out of water or fish in a barrel? We'll take aim at Sarah Jessica Parker and Hugh Grant in Did You Hear About the Morgans?
God in heaven, that hurt.
You right, Pop?
Yes, I had some lessons when I was a child.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, well, I don't tell you everything, so...
Yeah, I knew that.
Earlier in the show, we told you about a good romantic comedy. It's complicated. Now we have a movie that tries to single-handedly kill the entire genre. It's called Did You Hear About the Morgans? And it stars Hugh Grant and Sarah Jessica Parker as a high-powered Manhattan couple recently separated who, after a trial reunion dinner, witness a murder and become targets for the killer's next hit. Send in the bodyguards.
Do you want me to stay tonight?
No, I think I'm going to be fine with Marshall Henderson.
Huh? Do you think he can handle it? Huh?
Mrs. Morgan, I have your car right over here.
Well, good night.
Good night. Good night.
Mr. Morgan, Marshall Ferber.
Evening, sir.
These blue state liberal weenies enter the federal witness protection program and end up in red state, red meat, and red-blooded Ray, Wyoming. Sam Elliott and Mary Steenburgen play their hosts.
Do you hunt, Meryl?
Just for bargains. Actually, I'm a member of PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
So am I. Except mine's People for Eating Tasty Animals.
You notice the dead air before and after the punchline, the theoretical punchline anyway, in that last joke? Writer-director Mark Lawrence's entire movie is like that. There's practically a speech balloon above Hugh Grant's head that reads, well, I guess that one won't get a laugh either. I like the actors on screen, even though Grant looks flat out uncomfortable, but by the time the killer shows up in Wyoming, you might find your rooting interests strangely conflicted. Please, for the love of all that's sacred, and not to mention all that's funny, skip. Did you hear about the Morgans?
My feelings were not conflicted at all. There's a scene where Hugh Grant confronts a grizzly bear, and I've never rooted so hard for a predatory mammal. Also, the bear just sits there for about 15 minutes while Hugh does his weird little shtick and looks away and bats his eyes.
Yeah, even the bear looks a little nervous about the material.
This movie is the most phoned-in, witless, chemistry-less, energy-less, flatline romantic comedy since, I don't know, since Love Happens with Jennifer Aniston and Aaron Eckhart.
I say this film was actually texted in, not phoned in. Coming up next, can't decide what to see in theaters? Stay tuned for My 3 to See.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago, Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience, located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
Nostalgia isn't what it used to be, but My 3 to See offers you a couple of wonderful evocations of the past, plus a little something set 145 years in the future. Number 3, Avatar, writer-director James Cameron's leap into the future of digital filmmaking. It's worth seeing, especially in 3D. Number 2, Broken Embraces, starring Penelope Cruz as an actress caught between her jealous sugar daddy and her director. This is old-school melodrama with a little film noir in its blood, and it's from master stylist Pedro Almodovar. And number 1, Crazy Heart, which reminds us, not that we needed reminding, just how good and honest and vivid an actor we have in Jeff Bridges. He delivers a great naturalistic performance, and it's guaranteed to bring him an Oscar nomination. I think he's going to win, too. So.
All right. Well, we may have to make a little wager.
Okay.
Now you can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Just go to atthemoviestv.com to find out how. That's it for now. We'll leave you with a recap of this week's show.
Join us next week when we'll reveal our picks for the best movie of the decade. Plus, we'll review Robert Downey Jr. in Sherlock Holmes and Daniel Day-Lewis, Nicole Kidman, and Kate Hudson in 9. And until then, we'll be at the movies.